Hola y bienvenidos. Hello and welcome. My name's Steve. This is Street Smart Travel. Still here in Tulipe, Ecuador, the northern part of Ecuador, up on a farm. Been here since kind of mid-August, aside from a short trip back to Canada and right back to the farm. So today, a bit of a break in terms of wanted to talk a bit about the state of electricity, or perhaps the lack of electricity in the country. It's actually a state of emergency. I've been here for almost exactly 2 years. I came down, I think it was November 16th, 2022. And for about the first year, no issues with electricity. It was awesome, right? And I was working remotely, so that helped me out a lot because I needed to have access to the internet. And it was never an issue. And about a year ago, so November 2023, there started to be scheduled blackouts in most parts of the country. I'm not going to say all parts, but most parts. And there was actually in mid-June, there was a blackout for the entire country. I don't know what happened there. Ironically enough, I was on a farm that ran on solar at that point, and it had some other issues, but at least while the sun was shining, we had power. So I was blissfully unaware that on a Wednesday afternoon in June of this year, 2024, the power had gone out in almost all the country for several hours. And I didn't find that out until a couple days later, because I was watching a video on YouTube out of California, of all places, and they mentioned, hey, yeah, Ecuador was without power today. And I'm like, we had power? It's like, we're not on the grid. I'm a licensed electrician. It took a minute to figure that one out. Like, why did we have power? Oh, yeah. We're not on any kind of feed, right? Anyways, it hasn't been a daily thing. I mean, it has lately, but not since November of 2023. It hasn't even been a weekly thing, but probably monthly. And when it started in November of last year, there were scheduled blackouts, and there still are. And it's great when they stick to the schedule. But the government will say one thing and the utility will say another thing. So I always listen to the utility because they've been far more accurate than the government has been. Like this most recent spate of power outages started on, the 25th of September. So we're coming up on almost 3 weeks. Today is the 13th. The 25th of October. Today's the 13th of November. So we're coming up on almost 3 weeks of daily outages. And when it started, initially the government said, okay, we have to go, from 6 hours to 8 hours, and it turns out no. It went to 14 hours, 2 blocks of 7-hour blackouts, at least for the feed that we're on here. And we're lumped in with Los Bancos and a bunch of other smaller areas. But I think Quito has a similar schedule, and I could be wrong about that. So that was 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then midnight to 7 a.m. So it wasn't convenient certainly, but you could schedule around it. And really, here on the farm, I mean, it's sunny all day, every day. You can get done what you need to get done. It's mostly keeping things cold in the fridge and freezer. So they have these giant 3 liters, like 3-liter bottles. They're enormous, pop bottles, plastic bottles. And they had a bunch of empty ones here, so I filled them maybe 3/4 full, put them in the chest freezer to turn them into blocks of ice, and when the power's off, I put them in the fridge and the freezer of the fridge. And that keeps things cold enough. Right? But there's no furnace here, there's no AC. There's 2 stoves, which I thought was overkill. I've seen that all over the country, and I have been all over the country, and at first I thought, like, why would you, right? One's gas, one's electric, and then you realize, oh, yeah, when there's no electricity and you want to cook, at least you have the gas one. And the water heater here is on demand, also gas. Not the suicide shower that runs on electricity, thankfully. As an electrician, I find those particularly loathsome, but it gives you a warm or hot shower. So the hot water and cooking you can handle with gas, and you can light candles or have LED lights or whatever to work around this. And it's remarkably inconsistent, too, right? In terms of following the schedule, they're pretty good about that. But in terms of sticking to a consistent schedule, it changes. So this week so far, and the weekend was totally different, but this week so far it's been off from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it comes on for 4 hours and goes off from 6 p.m. to midnight. So you have power from midnight until 8 a.m. when, pretty much everybody's sleeping for most of that. Oh, here's some power, because that's the lowest demand time of the day. Not particularly useful unless you want to disrupt your sleep patterns and get up at 2 in the morning to do whatever you need to do and then try and get back to sleep after that. Anyways, it's been declared a state of emergency. I think it still is. It's not the only one down here, and all of that to say, when I came down 2 years ago, that wasn't an issue. If I was coming down now or thinking about coming here, like for a vacation, not a huge deal. And it's not like it's just Ecuador. The whole region relies on hydroelectric power. So when there's no rain, there's nothing to fill the reservoirs. And when the reservoir level gets too low, there's not enough pressure, not enough water pressure to drive the turbines to create the electricity, which then gets distributed. So I don't know that other countries around here are doing much better, to be honest, and I don't know that anybody has a plan B. I mean, individuals and businesses, if you don't need a lot of power, you can have a generator, and a lot of people do, but of course the demand for generators has gone up, so the cost has at least doubled, and nobody has that kind of money here to do that. Sun shines every day here in Tulipe, and there's a rainy season where I'm sure it doesn't, but I've been to parts of the country where it is literally sunny every single day. Why is there no power for solar, right? Why is there not just some sort of a solar installation or some sort of an incentive? Hey, if you buy a single panel and an inverter, and it's not cheap down here, right, which is the issue, but at least you would have power to power your fridge and make coffee and charge your devices and maybe actually have internet and phone access, and right. So that at this point, that would probably be, it would give me pause. I don't know if it would be a deal breaker, but the blackouts are not the only state of emergency in the country at present. I'll get into the other one, and it looks like another one's coming up pretty quick on the heels of that. That'll be for another video. So it's frustrating, and you can schedule around, or at least I can schedule around these things. When I know there's going to be power, I charge my devices and back up batteries and whatever else, and when there's not power, I plan accordingly. Not the end of the world, but like I said, it would be a consideration if I was thinking about coming down here now. I would wait until somebody here, and probably won't be the government, but somebody here figures out how to keep the lights on. It's a pretty low bar, right? Just have some sort of backup plan in place, because without energy, electricity in this case, you have no business. Literally, you have no economy, and you have no life. I don't need a CPAP machine. I don't need anything. Like, I'm not going to suffer horribly if I don't have electricity, but if I did need something, a CPAP machine or something of that nature that needed electricity, that would definitely be a deal breaker. So if you're thinking about coming down, just keep it in mind. I'll drop some links in the description. Usually I get not the utility information, but just an idea of what's going on in the country from, I think it's Cuenca High Life. It's an English online news publication. It usually has 3 or 4 articles, maybe a couple more. It just lets me know what's going on in the country. I don't generally follow the news, right? I don't even know if there is, there's a TV in the main house, but I don't have access to a TV, and I don't need one or want one. And you can look around online to find information, but the Cuenca High Life is kind of my go-to for here, and then talking to the locals and other expats and seeing what's being posted in other expat groups. Like the Cuenca group is really pretty big, and there's people that have been without power. They post on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, hey, power went off Sunday afternoon, and it was supposed to come back on, and it never did. So, again, something to consider. I'll talk about it in other episodes, but as of November 13th, 2024, power is an issue here, or the lack of power, I guess, more correctly. And the weird thing is, like I said, it's been inconsistent. So we had at least 3 days last week where the power didn't go off. And I don't recall it raining. It hasn't rained for weeks. But we're coming up on a rainy season. Should be happening within a week, should be starting. Who knows if that's going to happen. And then apparently it rains every day for about 8 months. My plan at that point is to head somewhere else that has power and maybe a generator and less rain, ideally, at least for a change of pace. So if you happen to be in Ecuador and you're in a different part of Ecuador, let me know what your experience has been with blackouts, scheduled blackouts, how you're holding up, what you do. The ice packs for the fridge are kind of my go-to, and everything else is just scheduling around the existing hours when you know you're going to have power. And some days I can access my Claro, my cell plan, from a couple spots on the property, and some days I can't. It used to be pretty reliable, and then it all of a sudden wasn't, so yeah. But could always be worse. Could be worse. So that is one of the states of emergency, and I'll comment on the other one, and I think there's another one coming up. I don't know if it'll be an official state of emergency, but it's going to be a pretty serious issue, also having to do with water. So with that, I will say peace out. See you out on the road. Happy trails, and looking forward to the next one.